Okay, so today we're going to be watching Why Does Persona Overshadow SMT? And the main reason we're watching this is because SMT 5 Vengeance came out recently, and I kind of want to explain my experience with SMT 5 in particular, as well as obviously answer the overarching question. Now, before we get into this, I'm not going to watch the whole video. We're probably going to go around 3 minutes into it, and I also want to make sure that you guys go ahead. Let me get the video up. You leave a like and also subscribe to Choice Central. I don't know how to say his name. I hope I'm saying that correctly. But yeah, go check out his video down in the description below if you want to watch the whole thing. But let's get straight into it. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy.
Shin Megami Tensei 5 was my most anticipated release of 2021. Unfortunately, however, that sentiment wasn't as strong with many Atlus fans, considering Persona 5 Strikers, a spin-off of a spin-off series, has been selling at a comparable pace since its worldwide release earlier in the same year.
Okay, I do find that one a little bit crazy though. Persona 5 Strikers, I played that and I didn't like it, I'm not gonna lie to you, but I didn't get too far into the game, so maybe I should give it a second chance. But I'm not gonna lie to you, it wasn't fun, at least for me. But you know what I'm saying, I'll probably give it a second chance later on down the line.
While SMT5 didn't bomb by any means, it's led me to wonder how things turned out this way. It's led me to wonder why we have to compare the sales of a new mainline SMT to ports of decade-old games and Persona spin-offs. If you're just looking for the too long didn't watch summary, then you can pretty much just sum it up to social links like we're all thinking, as that's a major reason why. But as a fan of both games, I believe that there are some overlooked factors at play, so that is why I'd like to go on a deep dive of the entire series history in an effort to piece together a comprehensive list of reasons why Persona overshadows SMT. The core series of video games debuted in 1987 as Digital Devil Story Megami Tensei for the Famicom, based on the eponymous book series by Aya Nishitani. A sequel released in 1990, which was later followed up by the first Shin Megami Tensei for the Super Famicom in 1992. 2 years later, SMT2 released, and the first spin-off game, Shin Megami Tensei If, would release later that same year. From there,
actually, yeah, that is an interesting fact. That the fact that Shin Megami Tensei is technically a spin-off of Megami Tensei. Obviously, a lot of people, they probably don't pay too much attention to that, or well, I'm not saying they don't understand it, but they probably don't know that. But yeah, Shin Megami Tensei is technically a spin-off of Megami Tensei. But yeah.
There, a whole host of different sub-series made their debuts, including Megami Ibanroku Persona, renamed in the West to Revelations Persona, which supposedly started development after positive reception of SMT If's high school setting. Now, before we get too far into this, I'd like to mention something that I don't hear as often when this topic is being discussed. Starting off, I think the series title, Shin Megami Tensei, pushes away Western audiences. Its relatively long isn't a phrase that's easy to remember, and it puts off people who aren't used to hearing Japanese words. And unless you speak Japanese, it may as well not even mean anything. It makes sense why they released the first Persona title with the Revelations prefix instead. While they would eventually start putting Shin Megami Tensei in front of the Persona title, it would mostly be ignored and people would just refer to it as Persona. And eventually, the Shin Megami Tensei moniker would get dropped altogether. Moving on, although the first Persona game was successful, subsequent releases weren't doing as well. The Persona series saw declining sales, and things were looking shaky with the mainline series as well. In 2003, nearly 10 years after the last mainline release, SMT3 Nocturne famously failed to meet initial sales expectations, although it would eventually meet success with re-releases in later years.
Yeah, because eventually
However, in 2005, Atlus was on the brink of bankruptcy.
Ooh.
They had to do something to revitalize themselves, or their next game would be their last.
Actually, I was going to say that we're going to end the video off here, obviously. Again, go check out the full video down in the description below. But what he does say about the name Shin Megami Tensei, I don't think necessarily that is the reason why people weren't drawn into, SMT. And the main reason why is because we've seen other examples of localization just not being needed. For example, people know from the kids' anime dolls when they used to go ahead and change certain aspects because they were too Japanese. also I can give you a name like such as Kuroko no Basket. Like, people know the anime as Kuroko no Basket. I'm pretty sure it's called, I think it's called Kuroko's Basketball when it's the way it's like advertised in English, but people just call it Kuroko no Basket. Like, no one, I don't know anyone that calls it by an English name. But yeah, let's get straight into obviously the next part of this now. Okay, so now I'm kind of going to go into my own background with SMT and obviously Persona. So the first Persona, Shin Megami Tensei game I've played was Persona 5. That I got on, not release, but close to release. And that, obviously, as you guys probably know from the background music, is my favorite game of all time. I'm not going to lie to you. Persona 5 did something to me, which I had never felt from any other game. Obviously, I do want to comment on how he said he believed that the reasoning why it's a lot more popular than SMT is because of the social links, and I think that is a major part of it, a major component, but obviously it is a lot more complex, which he probably goes on later on down in the video. But again, you know, if you want to check out the full video, make sure you go check in the description below. But I got Persona 5, loved it, played it through multiple times, got Persona 5 Royal on day one. And I'm trying to remember which one came first. I think it was Persona 5 Royal, but I got SMT 5 originally because of Persona, you know? Like, and that's one thing I do love about the Persona series. It essentially did introduce me and probably a load of other people to the mainline SMT games. But I got into it, the main reason why 5 was my first game was because obviously it was releasing soon. And I'd done my research on obviously SMT3 and SMT4, so I assumed the game was going to be more so, especially with how people were saying online, it's looking like Nocturne, which is, as a lot of people will probably say, is the best SMT game. So I assumed the game was going to be more philosophical, it's going to be more in-depth in terms of like the story, maybe not to the level of Persona, but more in depth in the story to the point where it had like Nocturne's alignment system. I forgot what it's called now. I think it's called Reasons. It's a reason system in Nocturne, but yeah. So I got SMT5 thinking that there was going to be a story, and I swear to you, I made it to the third act, but the first two acts, they just wanted you to just run around and just kill demons. I'm not gonna lie to you. They had no rhyme or purpose as to why you were even there in that world. I think it's called the Da'ats in SMT5. So yeah, I didn't obviously finish SMT5. I got basically very close, but it lost me during the third act because it just felt like I was doing the same thing over and over again without any sort of reasoning to do so. So why do I now, I'm going to answer the overarching question, why do I believe that Persona is, well, as the video says, overshadows SMT? Why do I think it's more popular? Obviously, again, the social links do play a part in it, but building on top of that, it's more so the fact that Persona is just a lot more relatable than SMT. SMT, what you got to think about it like this is that SMT is set in a post-apocalyptic world where it deals with multiple religious figures, and it essentially treats them in a very, not weird way, but in a very unique way. So a lot of the mythical figures in SMT, for you guys who obviously don't know, most of you guys obviously, you've clicked on the video, you probably do know, but for those of you guys that don't know, you know, the mythical figures are known as demons. And for a lot of people, you know, a lot of people are religious still. A lot of people even still feel awkward. Maybe they're not religious, but they do feel awkward when they hear stuff like demons, when they see like certain imagery in SMT. And that kind of puts them off, you know, whereas Persona is a game about high school kids that end up getting into shenanigans. You get what I'm trying to say? So SMT is just a very niche game in terms of its audience as well as its appeal. Now, do I believe that it can't get bigger or whatever, or it's never going to be bigger than Persona? I don't actually think so. I think SMT could at least be on par with Persona in terms of popularity, but it's just a bit harder to do so because it's harder to sell the themes and it's harder to sell the imagery in SMT, you know? a big example of what I'm talking about is essentially how they treat, you know, gods of the how would I say this? The obviously I don't want to make this religious, but the god that you know, the singular omnipotent god, if that makes sense. That in our real world, you know, some people believe and some people don't believe. If that makes sense, you know, the big god. You feel me? So the way they treat him in SMT is not always in the most positive light. And I watched the video previously before this video, obviously not straight after, but I'm talking about like before, which they were even going into the reasoning why a lot of these games in terms of Persona and SMT, like the SMT series in general, like they usually have themes where you have to fight God, and it's because of Japan's cultural cultural views of like religion, you know. And I do find that quite interesting. That's also something that kind of got me more into like, okay, like I understand kind of what they're doing. Whereas a lot of people, you know, when they first hop on the game and they start seeing you having to like, you know, fight this person or fight this deity or like fight, you get what I'm trying to say. For a lot of people that might feel a little bit awkward for them, you know. So yeah, I think a major point is the relatability. I'd also say as well with SMT is that the difficulty is quite a major factor as to why people can't get into it. Because one thing I will tell you right now is that Persona is way easier than SMT. I've played Persona 5 Royal and Persona 4 Golden, not Persona 4 Original, but and obviously SMT 5. I'm telling you right now, SMT 5 is harder than all of those games. Persona 4 Golden, I played it on hard mode, and I played Persona 4 Gold on the hard mode, and I played Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal on hard, not Merciless, purely because I heard that Merciless, you can abuse that. You can abuse Merciless mode. So I was like, well, the hardest mode is hard, so let me go for that. So the difficulty, because in SMT you have to be a lot more tactical, you have to be a lot more aware of what you're doing. Whereas Persona, you can just kind of run through the game, and you're not going to have too many issues, obviously, unless you're fighting super bosses or things of that nature, or you haven't leveled correctly, or you haven't been fusing personas correctly. So, other than that, I also do want to speak about SMT 5 Vengeance. Would I ever get SMT 5 Vengeance? From what I've seen from Vengeance, it looks like a massive upgrade. Don't get me wrong. But again, with what they've been doing with SMT in general, they've been streamlining a lot of the things that I guess would make it more unique for me to play it. For example, in Vengeance, they only have 2 new endings, which is obviously the altered Chaos on Law endings. They don't have any new neutral endings. And it does make sense because there were 2 neutral endings for the original SMT5. But I feel like if you're going to do that, I feel like the biggest improvement for SMT5 would legitimately just to put more nuanced endings, even though the Chaos on Law endings are interesting in Vengeance. So for me, I don't personally think I will get SMT5 Vengeance. I don't even think I'll finish SMT. Well, no, I'll probably finish SMT5. I'll eventually get around to it because I did get near. I was in the 3rd act, you know. I was near the end. So I'll probably get around to finishing it eventually, especially because I got it on Switch. I can play it basically whenever. But Vengeance, yeah, I'm a little bit on the fence just because I obviously paid full price for the beta version. You feel me? So I guess in conclusion, the reason why Persona overshadows SMT is just simply because it's a lot more relatable and it's a lot more story focused, whereas SMT is really just for those hardcore SMT fans. And well, it's not just for the hardcore SMT fans, but it's more so catered towards those. I'm trying to think, is there anything else I do want to say? At least with the spin-offs as well. Again, the spin-offs usually cater towards a certain group of people, you know. SMT, I'm trying to think if they have any spin-offs that aren't Persona, you know, aren't like mainline spin-offs, if that makes any sense. I don't think so. I can't think of any like SMT spin-offs. Like obviously I know about, you know, stuff like Digital Devil Saga. I know about what's the one that came out recently? I fully forgot, but it didn't do well. There was one that came out recently. Is it Digital? What? That is gonna irritate me. But there's a game that came out recently that obviously went more in a different direction. but I don't really necessarily count those as SMT mainline spin-offs because they're not really, they're in the same lane as Persona, if that makes any sense, like all of that Digital Devil Saga and things of that nature. So I don't really count them. But yeah, the reason why Persona is more popular than SMT is simply because it's more relatable, simply because it has a lower barrier of entry in terms of difficulty and in terms of understanding the story. Because again, with SMT, the story is quite interesting. The story is actually a lot more, I mean, a lot less uninviting than what it seems like on the outside looking in, you know? Like, SMT deals with, you know, stuff like multiple universes, you know, stuff like, you know, these mythical figures being from, because obviously there's the devil summoning program and things of that nature, and, you know, it deals with all of that stuff, and it's just kind of the naming conventions which kind of put people off, in my opinion, you know? I feel like that puts a lot of people off anyways. Like, I feel like once you've already been through like the kind of, I feel like if you've already played Persona, you kind of already know, and you kind of don't feel less awkward about it. But for people that have just, you know, gone to the shop or just looked through the PlayStation Store and they see SMT5, they look at the description, you know, they're not gonna know what's what. If they even look up videos and then like people start speaking about, you know, demons, people get put off, you know what I'm trying to say. But that's the main reasoning why. You know what, I legitimately just realized as well, I didn't even speak about the other Persona games, did I? The very last thing. So obviously Persona 3 and 4, because this is something I specifically wanted to talk about as well, actually I completely forgot about. Persona 3 and 4, Persona 3 is more so like SMT in terms of like, I wouldn't say what it is, but at least like thematically it's not a it's not a positive game. Thematically, it's not a positive game. You know, Persona 1 and 2, obviously, it feels a lot more, not post-apocalyptic, but a lot more dreary, you know, a lot more sad. Whereas Persona 3, it incorporated, obviously, those social link elements, but obviously, the whole theme of Persona 3 was death. You know, it was a very melancholy game, you know. And that's probably the reasoning why it did well, but the reasoning why it didn't do, you know, Persona 4 numbers. And the reason why Persona 4 did so well is because it was legitimately an anime game, like a full-on anime game. You get what I'm trying to say? Like, people love Persona 4, people say Persona 4 is their favorite. Me, I've played it and I did like it a lot, but I still think Persona 5 is better, obviously. But I can understand why people did not see Persona 3 in the same way they see 4 and 5. Because 4 was more so anime, and 5, they kind of tried to not take the anime out of it, if that makes any sense, but they tried to scale back the whole happy-go-lucky nature of it. And that's where I feel like the perfect balance is, where you have that kind of dreary sense that you get, but you also have those very upbeat moments that you have in Persona, and I think that's the formula they're gonna go onwards with later on in the series. Because people, it's not that people don't like, you know, sad moments or very like downing moments in games, because, you know, like the Kamoshida situation, for example, is a very like serious moment. It's a very like scary situation for the characters to be in, but once they complete it, everybody's happy, everyone's doing good. You know what I'm saying? It feels like the game legitimately, as the game goes on, like everything goes up. The fandom feeds feel unstoppable until everything goes down. Whereas SMT, obviously, it's just everything is just hell. Like nothing goes right. The demons you speak to and try to recruit, they don't even like you for real. They only like you if you say the correct things, and like, you know what, I'll give my power to you. But they're ruthless, you know. Like, it's not inviting, whereas Persona is a game that's very inviting. But yeah, again, let me end the video off here, obviously. I forgot to add this in, so I had to quickly, you know what I'm saying. But thank you guys very much for watching. If you like my commentary and are new to the channel, please leave a like and also subscribe, because that very much helped me out. One thing I do want to also end off with as well, for any of you guys who are returning, I've got video essays planned out. You know, there's video essays that are going to be coming out within well, not video essays, I've got a video essay coming out in the next 2 weeks, so you guys be ready and stay tuned, ready for that one. Obviously, the main reason why I have not been getting them out is because, you know, as you guys know, I was doing my uni exams. I've got my results, obviously, so, you know what I'm saying, I had to celebrate, and I'm in the middle of playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor. So I mean, you know what I'm saying? You guys need to give me some time, But video essays are coming out, man. So just be ready for those when they are ready. And I've got 3 right now that I particularly want to do. And then I've also got one which is Elder Scrolls, and it's not that I particularly don't want to do it, it's more so that I need to do more research on Elder Scrolls. But for now, the 3 that I'm already thinking of, I think I've got those completely down. I already know what I want to explore and the topics I want to do, and also how to write it. But for the Elder Scrolls one, obviously, I need to obviously do a little bit more research. So just give me some time, and enjoy the content as we go on. But you know, hope you guys have a blessed, lovely, blessed rest of your day, and take care.